I wouldn't make another debt payment until you watch this entire video where I'll be talking about the 5 mistakes that beginners make when paying off debt. Not only have I been a corporate accountant for the last decade plus, but I paid off my own $43,000 worth of debt in just 13 months. But unfortunately, after I had already learned these 5 big mistakes the hard way. So if you're struggling to pay off your credit card debt, student loan, a car loan, smash the like button so I know you're here. And let's just jump right into it. The number one mistake that I see happening all the time with beginners trying to pay off their debt is thinking that minimum payments are enough. And I'm here to say that that's just not true. So we're going to go through um payments for each. The balances of all the loans are totaling $57,000. The minimum payments are totaling $450. Okay, so this is going to be important information later. This section here is where we're going to enter how much money we're entering for our debt. So for this example, let's just say that we are only making minimum payments. And this part here is showing us how much extra money we're applying towards our debt on top of our minimum payment. So since we're just making our minimum, it's $0. We scroll down here, and this is kind of where it gets interesting. This is the calculator portion of the debt payment calculator. So as you can see, we still have our loan types and we still have the balances. So it populates those. But now we have extra columns here. We have the interest paid for each of the line items. We have how many months it's going to pay for each of the line items. And we have how, the date associated with these amount of months. Basically, it's saying, here's how much money we're going to be paying over the life of the loan based on the stats that we've entered up here and how much we're paying each month. And then our debt-free date down here, which is really exciting. We get to see that, but it's 2053. So I'm streaming this video in 2025. So first of all, if you're serious about paying down your debt, you have $57,000. It should not take you, what is that, 28 years to pay off that debt, okay? And that's what minimum payments do. To me, minimum payments is not exactly a strategy. It's just like doing the bare minimum so that you can get by. You can avoid any extra fees or the whatever deal you have with the loan provider, right? But they're basically telling you, hey, this is the minimum amount that you have to pay unless you want to pay a fee. If you want to pay less, there's a fee, there's extra stuff, there's extra interest, and the interest is the killer with that, as you can see with this, right? So you're walking around thinking, okay, I have $57,000 of debt. That's a lot, right? But it's like, okay, we can do something about that. And then you look down here and you're neglecting to think about the interest that you're going to be paying throughout the 28 years in this example of being in debt. So right now it's almost $94,000. So if you combine all this, it's like $150,000 that you actually have in debt because again, you're not considering the interest. So that's why I say that minimum payments isn't really a plan. So what I want to show you is adding just a little extra money towards that debt every single month makes a significant impact. So what if we just added an extra $100 to our monthly payment amount? So instead of 450, I'm going to make it 550 is what we're paying. And I want you to look at how much interest we shave off and when the debt-free date moves, right? So remember, total interest paid $94,000 currently, and the debt-free date is in 2053. So I'm going to hit enter. And it basically just lobbed off over $60,000 of interest. And what is that? 15 years of being in debt like that much sooner? It's crazy for an extra $100. So that's why that having some sort of plan above the minimum is a great plan. Even if you were just to even if you didn't think $100 you make it. Oops, sorry. Even if you didn't think $100 you could make work, like what about 50 extra dollars? Look what that did. It's still like $50,000 of interest and 12 years earlier of becoming debt free. So truly every little amount every single month, it's so significant when it's paying down your debt. Because we all know that things compound, right? Money compounds, time compounds, but interest compounds too. And I don't really talk about investing on this channel, right? But, a lot of people like investing because it's, positively compounding your money, but debt works the same way, but backwards, right? So the longer you're in debt, the more you have to pay in interest. That interest is negatively compounding too. So debt is the biggest wealth killer for you. And it's the biggest wealth generator for those that are taking your money, right? Or taking your interest payments. So that hopefully is a good quick little tutorial of like, hey, let's get a plan. And a little later on, I'm going to tell you um, how you can actually, because you're probably sitting there like, okay, great, find extra money in your finances, great. How do I do that? I'm going to show you in a little bit how I am currently guiding people to do that. Okay. The next mistake that people are making when paying down their debt, right? We're talking about beginners here, or people just starting, or people kind of trying to figure out what's going on, is having no emergency fund. And I know this maybe sounds like, basic or boring information, but here's an analogy to that I want you to think about when doing this. I want you to visualize your favorite video game that you've ever played. Think of a video game where the main character has a health bar. Okay. So for me, I don't know about you guys, I'm thinking about Halo for whatever reason. That just popped in my mind. I played it probably 15 years ago at this point, but that's like the game that I'm thinking about. So if you're with me live, or if you're watching this after fact, let me know either in the stream now or in the comments below this video, which video game are you currently visualizing with the main character going through with the health bar? The health bar in this example is your emergency fund. And the end of the level or the end of the game is the financial goal, like paying down debt, for example, right? That's the example we're going to use. So let's pretend you're going through the game, you have your health bar, you have your emergency fund, you're going through it, and everything's going great. But then you start getting attacked from all angles, right? The screen's flashing red, you're getting attacked, your health bar's going down in the game that you're playing. What do? Do you continue to move forward with the risk of, okay, maybe I'm going to die in the game, or with like the reward of like, hey, if I make it through this, I can beat the level? Or do you kind of look around, you're like, I'm about to die in the game. Do you find the rock over in the corner? You get the med kit, right? And you kind of stabilize the health bar until all the bad stuff goes away, right? So if you're following, right? Because in the game, if you're going through and you're getting attacked and your emergency fund or your health bar goes to zero, you have to go to the last checkpoint, or you have to go, start the game all over again, and that's really frustrating. And I see it a lot when I'm talking to people in their personal finances. They're making great progress every month, and then just like that, and out of nowhere expense comes up, right? It's an unexpected expense, but at this point we should be expecting unexpected expenses, right? Because everyone has them at all different levels, right? Everyone has them. And because, if you don't have an emergency fund, you're not equipped to absorb that unexpected expense. And what ends up happening is you have to go maybe further into debt. So if you don't have any money to pay for, you need new tires all of a sudden, right? Let's just say on your car, and you don't have however much that is, $1,000 to pay that, right? And you put it on a credit card, and the 3-4 months of forward progress that you've made on your debt, just you go right back to the start of the game again, right? You go right back to zero, and you have to go through that same part of the game that you just played. So in real life, it's like you have to go through those same 3-4 months of hard work and consistency to be able to pay off that debt again. So that's why having an emergency fund is so important in the process of paying down debt, because um, in reality, I like to have people focus on one financial goal at a time. I think people get, especially today, like people just get too distracted with all the possibilities of like making money and all these other things that are going on. But if you think about it, like let's say you had $800, right? And you put $100 towards different financial goals, right? You have a crypto $100, you maybe are in sports betting, you have, index funds, you have all these like things. Do you think it would be faster to grow your wealth and your finances by doing that? Or if you just put all of the $800 towards one thing? So that's what I like to, that's usually my advice, except for when it's the emergency fund and paying down the debt. I think we have to find a way to build up both at the same time. Um, and for the emergency fund, you're going to see a lot of copy paste articles online. It's so stupid. Where if you were to search how much money should I have in my emergency fund, all these articles are going to say that all the experts say, 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses is like an ideal emergency fund. And while they're not wrong, like that's sound advice. If someone's just starting out and they see, oh, wow, I need 3 to 6 months of expenses, and then they look at their expenses and it's like, wow, I need to save like 10 to 30 plus $1,000. Like maybe, an emergency fund isn't for me, right? And they think it's like out of their league that I can't save $20,000 like to have a proper emergency fund. So how I like to think about it is, how much money do you think you need to be able to cover all of those unexpected expenses that come up? So kind of look back at your life and see all the stuff that came up. If you can kind of remember or go back to like bank statements or whatever and just see like, hey, what are the things that came up? So for some people, an emergency fund would be a good starting emergency fund would be like $1,000. Maybe for you it's $2,500, right? Whatever the situation is. So build up that starter emergency fund first. That way, if you do get hit with the unexpected expense, you can go into your emergency fund without having to stop paying down your debt, or worse, go further into debt. Okay. So that's number two. Again, let me know if that video game analogy. What game are you guys playing, and what were you visualizing? So the third mistake that I see beginners making all the time when trying to pay down their debt is not having an accountability partner. And I think this is really important, um, to just keep honest with yourself. Honestly, like, you can get in your head a lot. And I found out the hard way with this too, like trying to grow my personal finances and build all the way up. I mean, luckily, like for me, I had my wife, but if you could use a significant other, a family member, a friend, a coworker, whatever. And I'm actually going to share, like, I have a community that I'm going to go through in a second, and I think that's a great alternative as well for an accountability partner. But the reason the reason why this works is that you can, oh yeah, thumbs up. The reason why this works is, think about it like in any part of your life. Like if you were to go to the gym by yourself or gym with a buddy, are you more likely to go to the gym with the buddy or by yourself, right? Because if you've made a commitment to a friend or whatever to go to the gym, and you keep like flaking and dodging out, like that that impacts your accountability partner, because they're there for you and you're not there for them. So it really, really helps. And basically, when my wife and I were doing this, um, yeah, I don't know, we were starting to have like the talks about like, hey, we're we wanted to have kids and everything, and the talks were getting a little more serious. And we were looking at our life, we were auditing our life and being like, what about our life sucks right now that would like make being a parent harder? And we just looked and looked and looked, and like the thing that kept popping up was, hey, we have this $43,000 of debt. Like maybe we should like try to get rid of it like as soon as possible. We were just being very lazy. We were doing the number one mistake that I was explaining in this video, which was we were paying minimum payments. If we got a bonus or something, maybe we'd throw a little extra at it, but we just were not being intentional with our money. We were just doing the bare minimum. Okay. And we're like, nope. So we drew a line in the sand. And from that point forward, we literally had a meeting on our couch every month. It was 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever. We had this stupid little spreadsheet where we just basically tracked like, okay, here's all the loans, here's how much we have left, at the start of this meeting. And then we would focus on which debts are we focusing on, for the next month, and like what's the plan for the like next couple. And then we meet again, we do the same thing. And we were so focused on it that, again, we were able to pay that off in 13 months. Oh, Mario Brothers, nice, Ardita. Um, and we were able to pay that off in 13 months. And it was because we made it our main priority and our main focus, and we were accountable with each other, right? Because you know having like a significant other, we were sharing a bank account, so that's like the most accountable, right? Because we could kind of see what was going on. But the debt was messy, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. We had 12 different loans, 12. So I had some just for me, my wife had some, and then we had shared. It was a complete disaster, and that's why we had to stay super, super organized to be able to make this happen. And I mentioned that I had a free community, so I wanted to talk about that quickly. It's called Dollar Discipline University. Okay, so the link is down in the description. It's school.com/debt. And basically, people in here are on the same journey that you are. If you've clicked on this video and you're watching this, you want to try and be a little more efficient when it comes to paying down your debt, or you want to build a better financial foundation. Um, this is the place to be. There's a lot of great people in here, especially, um, I mean, just fun. Just people are engaging in here. And, we have trainings and classes, and there's resources, and just people like motivating each other to keep going. Um, right now, there's 45 members. I'd love to see by the time I stream next Thursday night at this time, we pass the 50 mark. I just want to keep ramping up the amount of people. And until my calendar fills up, until it's just I'm stupid busy, I'm taking free strategy calls with all new members and setting up a path to help you, you know, build your financial base, find a way to what I kind of teach in here is a way to find more money in your finances with the income that you already have. Like the money that you need to pay down your debt more efficiently is already in your finances. So I'm going to work with you to kind of help and create a plan and make that happen for you on a better time horizon. So if you're interested, school.com/debt. The link again is down in the description of the video. I'd love to see you in there. Come say hi. Tell me you came from the live stream, or if you're watching this after, let me know. I'd love to hear that too. So that was number three, guys, the number three mistake. So just to kind of quickly sum up, the first three mistakes that beginners make when paying down their debt are thinking that minimum payments are enough. They're not. Not having an emergency fund like as a backup plan in case the thing that you're going the journey that you're going on fails. Number three mistake was not having an accountability partner. And now we're going to go to the fourth mistake that beginners make when paying down their debt, which is not tracking their expenses. And this is something that we kind of go over in Dollar Discipline University. It's one of the resources that I have. It's a budget template. And people that I talk to on a regular basis with their personal finances, it goes either in a couple ways. They either say that they're budgeting, but what that means is they know how much money their bills are, but they're not really tracking their regular expenses like their groceries, their gas, their purchases on Amazon, whatever. But they know, like, okay, yep, I know how much my rent is, my mortgage, my utilities. They know the bills, but they don't know the regular stuff. And then at the end of the month, they wonder why they aren't they they don't feel like they have money right at the end of the month. And it's like, well, I'm organized, I know like my bills, but we have to track all of it. We can't half-ass it. So that's kind of what um what this next mistake is. And I know from experience, um just to tell a quick story of like how my personal finances started. Over 10 years ago, I basically botched the sale of a new car because I didn't know how much money was in my bank account. I had no clue to the nearest $1,000 how much money was in my bank account. I was supposed to go to the car dealership to give them a check with an amount on it, and I was $1,500 short the day before I found this out. So completely botched it. And again, like I said at the top, I went to college for accounting. Like I have an accounting degree, and it was in my early mid 20s, and I was just like not living up to the expectations that I had set for myself. I was telling anyone that wanted to hear, like, oh, I'm great with numbers and money, and I went to school for accounting, but like again, the actions in my life and the stuff that I was doing in my personal finances did not align with that at all. So again, I drew another line in the sand. This is like I call these like my hell no moments where it's like, no, I'm drawing a line in the sand and I have to fix this. So because I think when people hear like, oh, tracking your expenses or budgeting, it's like this, it's almost like a swear word for some people, right? Where it's like, oh, oh God, it just means my life's going to be restricted. But a budget tells us what we can do with our money, not what we can't do, right? And it's just budgeting just allows us to be intentional. And every dollar that we bring in, we need to know where it's going, right? And so for me, I didn't do this crazy intense thing to start my financial journey. Again, I said that I didn't know how much money was in my bank account. So the first step that I took was just open my bank account every morning after that day. So the morning after, and check my bank account, how much money was in there. That was the first like way that I tracked my finances. And that's not really tracking your finances, but it's just like that's kind of just like stepping on the scale for like a health and fitness reference. It's just like tracking a number. Okay. But then it was like, okay, this is great. I did this for like 30 or 45 days in a row. And I was like, this is great and all, but like, I probably need more information. Like, is my bank account going up or down every month? Okay. So then I started figuring that out. And then it's like, well, what, what's making up my bank account? Like, I know how much my checks are going in, but I don't really know what's going out. So like, how do I see like what categories all the expenses are. And so I started really tracking it like that. I downloaded this very simple, very basic budgeting app. And every time I made a purchase, like I went to the grocery store, I would hop on the app real quick. I'd be like, all right, groceries, $100, whatever it was, and just move on my day. At the end of the month, I would see all the categories breaking out. And it's like, you're very surprised, especially the first month or two when you do this, like how much you're actually spending in certain categories. So for me, like groceries was always like one of the categories where I was like, because we would go once a week, like maybe, whoever, me or my wife, but then we'd forget about like the two or three trips we took during the week to get other stuff that we needed, like kind of that day or whatever. So we forgot about those trips. And then of course, like the number one category that a lot of people are finding that they're spending more in than they uh, thought they were, was like dining out and restaurants and food delivery and all this other stuff. So, but the way that we can sort of, and now I'm talking back to you, like we're out of my story, but we're talking back how I like to do it and how I like to show people inside of Dollar Discipline University is by using something called the 3-month look back for our expenses. And basically what we do here is we take a look back at last 3 months of our expenses. So we're streaming in March right now. So you'd want to look at February, January, and December, those 3 months. So however you buy stuff, could be with your credit card, could be with your debit card. If you do cash, it's a little harder, but like, you could maybe ballpark cash, but like for the most part, it's how do we, what did we spend? Where did we spend all our money? Right. So in each of those months, December, January, February, we create a list of all the expense categories. And then each month we total up how much we spent in each of the categories. Right. At the end of those 3 months, we look at an average. We take the average of those 3 months and we're like, okay, this is how much I've been spending in all of those categories. And then what I want you to do is align the numbers that we have there, so all of our averages for all the expense categories. And then I want you to make a list of what I call your North Star goals. And these could be 2 things on the list, 5 things, 10 things. It doesn't really matter. They could be financial goals, they could be life goals, they could be things that are just very, very important to you that you're not willing to give up. And that's kind of the point of this. It's like, what are your non-negotiables, or what are the things that you're trying to accomplish? So like, um, back to like my wife and I paying down $43,000 of debt. Basically, the number one thing on that list for us, and I didn't do this exercise, but thinking back, it was clearly like our number one priority was paying down the debt. And then we had it would have been some other things on there, like, yeah, about our future kids, like how are we going to whatever, right? But that was like the main priority. But you can put anything on this list that you want. Okay. So um I always try to think of like the weirdest example, not weird, but so I was working with this individual, and on his list, or he just kind of told me a couple things that were important to him, and he said that he gets very expensive haircuts from this guy, maybe twice a month, once a month, but he's been going to that same person for almost 2 decades. And he's like, these haircuts are so freaking expensive, but this is like a non-negotiable. This guy's like family. I'm going to keep going back here. And he was telling me like I needed to like he had to convince me. And I was like, this is your list. Like these are your non-negotiables. This is, the stuff that you say is most important to you. So whatever's on your list is on your list. And then from there, we kind of trim the fat around everything else, because in order to, advance paying down your debt faster, right? In order to make that happen a little more efficiently, we do have to make sacrifices somewhere else. But the whole point of the North Star goals and the 3-month look back is not having to sacrifice the things that you actually care about. Because I think that's when people kind of fall off the wagon. They just feel like they're like making sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice, and it's things that they care about. But if you're giving up things that, are unnecessary, or things that, aren't on your North Star goal list. Because if you think about it, it's like, oh, I have 5 things on here, but yeah, dining out, like that doesn't really impact positively any of these goals that I have for my life or my finances or whatever. So it's like, yeah, like it's very inconvenient to do that less, but now I need to because I told myself that these 5 things were most important, right? So I hope that kind of makes sense there. And then the last mistake, guys, that I see beginners making when paying down their debt is giving up too soon. And this one really stinks, especially like if I start working with someone and they kind of either fall off or they ghost, and you could tell that it was getting like too much for them, and things like that. But it all goes back to the why. Like, what's your why? Why are you doing this? And I tell people that are like almost kind of falling off the wagon, if you will, that maybe they need to like improve their why a little more, because I just find it hard to not be motivated to do something if your why is strong enough. So if you keep doing this thing and you're quitting, again, this works with anything in your life, right? If you're going to the gym and you keep going, like you're on for a week and then you're off for 3 weeks and then you go back, but it's like, I don't know if I really want to do this. That just means that your why might not be strong enough. Because when your why is strong enough, it's like you make things happen. And um, I think the whole like, hey, this is hard is kind of it's a tough sell in my opinion. Like, yes, being organized financially is hard. It can be very hard. It can be very tedious. It can be boring. It can feel like you're not getting results. But you know what also is hard is living paycheck to paycheck, is being in debt for decades. And I'm not even talking about mortgages, like non-mortgage debt, and just being in debt for decades and just accepting it, and just like your whole life is just like a debt payment, or you're racking up the interest like we looked at in the first mistake, using the debt payment calculator. So everything's hard. You just kind of have to choose your hard. You're walking down the road and you have that big fork in the road. If you turn left, it's the hard that brings you back to the, like, a couple years ago in your life, and you're just living you're living the same loop. Or you can go right, which is also hard, but that might actually propel you forward, and it might, bring you to better financial goals. Because that's the other thing. It's like, if you quit on, trying to build your financial foundation, if you quit on trying to pay down your debt a little more efficiently, again, the debt and the interest is just going to linger. And that money could have been used to do something else. Like, it's a missed opportunity for another thing in your life. And just to kind of show you how powerful that is, let's go really quickly to back to the beginning, the debt payment calculator, because I want to show you something. So let's just say that extra $100. Sorry. Okay. And what? How much money was that? 450. Okay, we'll just say $60,000. So going from a minimum payment to adding $100, right? It saved $60,000 of interest. Now, this math won't be like perfect, and this isn't necessarily how it works. But let's just say that you did this. You paid off the extra $100 a month, and you were debt free 15 years earlier. Okay. And then as soon as you became debt free, the interest that you were paying, you put it into an investing vehicle. Okay. And let's just say another, so you pay off your debt in, whatever that was. And then that you saved 15 years of being in debt. So now you have extra money. So we'll just say it's 15 years. Estimated rate of return. Again, this isn't like an investing channel or an investing stream, but I just kind of wanted to show you. So historically, if you're investing in like the broad market, the US stock market, you can get returns up to like possibly 12%, 10, 12%. So let's just use 8% to be like extra super conservative, right? And even if you're not contributing anything monthly, you just put that $60,000 into an investing vehicle. You're not contributing monthly. And in 15 years, that's $60,000 turns into $200,000 in, again, an investing vehicle. And, you know, this math isn't perfect, but you kind of get the gist, where it's like, hey, if I am intentional now and I put that extra $100 towards my debt, I'm going to be done paying debt And then the time that I would have been in debt, I'm going to use the money applied and I'm going to make more money with it. I'm going to put my money to work instead of like keep giving other people. Like we want to be paying ourselves in the future. We don't want to be paying other people. This is how um honestly, this is like debt is just such a wealth killer for us. Like if we stay in debt, and again, it's just a wealth generator for everyone that's receiving the interest payments. So that was the 5 things, guys. Again, school.com/debt. Come check out Dollar Discipline University. Free strategy calls for all new members until my calendar fills up. And, again, if my calendar's free, I'm usually helping people after the strategy call to like get some things figured out. So that won't be available forever. It just is available now until my until my family hates my call schedule, and then we're gonna revisit that. But for now, that's what's happening. And if you're trying to just build your financial foundation, if you're trying to pay down your debt a little more efficiently, you don't know how, or you've tried things in the past that haven't worked, come check it out. I'm streaming every single Thursday night around 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So what I'd love to hear from you if you're, in the stream now or you're going to watch this later on, like what are the kind of things that you're maybe struggling with? What are some questions that you have around maybe budgeting or, paying down your debt a little more efficiently or any sort of mindset, challenges that you're having? I'd love to hear from you because I'm making these videos and streams on my YouTube channel of what I think people need. And then like also some feedback that I've been getting inside of Dollar Discipline University. It's like, okay, so this seems like a problem. I'm going to make this video, but I always love more feedback. So like, I'd love to know like what your pain points are. And so I hope to see you inside of Dollar Discipline University, linked down in the description. And I will see you next Thursday night. Have a good one, guys.